Hey everybody. So I hope you all are doing very good today. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about poker mind expansion on episode number 5. Uh, I'm maybe going to speak a little bit less about how it relates to poker today. I want to be a little bit more specific about often we as poker players have the identity, we are just poker players, but we're forgetting the faculty that we're using to play poker, which is our brain. So I want to talk a little bit about actual methodologies in order to be able to expand our mind. Because if we're thinking about poker only in the context of poker, then very often what happens is that we're simply using our knowledge about poker to figure out how to learn more and get better at poker. When in reality, the totality of our knowledge as a human being, as a Homo sapien, as something with this brilliant, squishy brain that we have, is very deep. So I would like to speak more in terms of life. I also can speak more in terms of poker, and if you would like to suggest that I do that, I can do that. But it certainly is easier for me to speak about life. So I'll do this episode, and we'll see how it goes. There was an enlightened man. His name was Kabir, and he spoke very often about how the fish in the sea is not thirsty. And he said that when he heard people say that they are thirsty, or they want something, they have desire, he would not be able to stop laughing. And this laughter is not that of attempting to harm someone emotionally. That is simply the laughter of seeing a fish in the ocean and hearing him say, "I'm very, very, very thirsty." Kabir said that people do not grasp what is most alive inside of them. So people walk from holy city to holy city with confused looks, not understanding why they're not becoming holy. Because they're going to cities, they don't understand that all locations are just a projection of the mind. They are the Holy One. You are the Holy One. And Kabir said that it doesn't matter if you go to Tibet or you go to Calcutta. This is the exact same phenomenon because the meaning of those things, your knowledge of these locations, is simply a projection of the mind. They don't exist in any way that's separate from anything else. Kabir spoke a lot about God. When I say God, I'm not speaking about a man in the sky. If that's your current belief, absolutely beautiful. God is absolutely the way to truth. But God is Albert Einstein. God is Nikola Tesla. God is Vincent van Gogh. God is Socrates. You see, God is man, and man is God. But not all man is God. Man simply has the seed. So man has the opportunity to be God, but man very often continues in his enslavement because he does not have the capacity to see the lies that he has been fed because he believes them. So the fish in the sea is not thirsty. And man does not have to be thirsty either. But he most certainly is. The thing is that man lives in God. But he's absolutely unconscious of this fact. Man is born in God. Man breathes God. And every individual will dissolve into God. Man is made of the stuff called God. But man is completely oblivious to this fact. And God is creativity. God is intelligence. God is not being a robot. That is absolutely ungodly. That is simply the job of a mere mortal. But man has the capacity to be eternal. But the fish is not thirsty in the sea. And man seeks his pleasure outside of him. because he doesn't understand that the fundamental seed of intelligence is meditation. God is not something to be worshipped because God is not something outside yourself. If you are going to worship anything, you should worship yourself. The problem is that the ego loves itself, but it also hates itself. So there are parts of ourselves that we like to see and that we feel very happy about, but we don't give permission to ourselves to explore the deeper depths because we are afraid of our ignorance. We are afraid of making mistakes like children. But a child is not burdened by the past. A child is not burdened by his fear of making an error. His survival is not dependent on making an error. He simply is creativity. He simply is intelligence. There's no barrier between him and intelligence. But to live in God, you did not need to cultivate any sort of character, any sort of structure, any sort of particular pre-made trick or strategy at the poker table. That preconception as to how we are going to play, what we are going to do, why people are doing what we're doing, in and of itself is the greatest barrier. Because intelligence is beyond thought. Intelligence is a very deep knowing, or a very deep realization that knowledge is not real, or a deep aloneness. But to live in intelligence does not require one to go to the monastery, to go to the church, to go to the mosque. It doesn't require you to be intelligent to go to these places. In fact, you are rewarded for your stupidity when you think that you can find God outside of yourself, because you were pat on the back and you were given the treat. Yes, you are a good Christian. Look at you, show all the other people how good of a Christian you are, but you don't understand that you are love. You and your Father are one. You are not separate. So there's no outside institution which can help you reach truth. There's a very old biblical story in Christianity that when Adam disobeyed God, he was very frightened, absolutely frightened. And of course, any child will be very frightened of their father. And God came in search of him. Adam was very afraid. He went behind a bush just to hide from God. He was not courageous enough to face him, to actually encounter him, to be honest about what he had done. And the story is that God called out in the Garden of Eden, Adam, where are you? Adam heard it, yet he did not respond. This is not just a story. This is not something that just happened in the past. This is what is happening in each moment. This is a parable. A parable is not about has no historic value. A parable is timeless. A parable is eternal because it always leads to truth. And it helps one dissolve falsehoods because it points to that which is beyond the cause and effect framework mind. Man is able to learn in stories, and Jesus was a very good teacher. He taught in parables. Now, when God calls you, do you hear him? Do you respond? Are you hiding? Are you scared? Are you hiding from the truth of your own being? God is not separate from you. You can only hide from yourself. Do you want to see your original face? Do you want to have the intelligence of a child? Of a Leonardo da Vinci? Do you want to have the intelligence of a Pablo Picasso? Do you want to have the intelligence of a Kurt Cobain or a Jimi Hendrix? Or do you want to have the intelligence of a factory worker? All that has to happen is that you need to be alert in each moment. You don't need to do some big thing and get on a new task and add a new belief. I need to do this. I need to do this. In fact, all that's required is everything that you are already doing simply needs alertness. We don't need to change anything. Maybe after poker, instead of studying with Pio Solver, or instead of not studying at all, which is very foolish, if you assume that you have enough skills to continue to win and you realize that there's inflation and skill goes better, and you think you can still rely on your tricks and you're not attempting to get better, this is fine. But I would encourage you to consider whether or not that's really the best option. Unfortunately, most of the people that don't study are doing it because they realize that the traditional ways are full of shit. Because they are far more intelligent than the robotic man who can simply study Pio Solver. But they still cannot get through if they're boiling water at 80 degrees Celsius. You must make the leap. It must be a quantum leap. But man is very strange. He's the most strange animal on the planet. He's the most strange organism. Trees are very ordinary, very intelligent. Squirrels, my cat. Absolutely intelligent. But no other animal lives in such pain. No other animal commits suicide at such absurd rates. Rocks are more intelligent than human beings. And rocks don't even have hearts. Because they're far more in tune with existence, with God. But man has lost his connection. And man has destroyed the bridge. So why has this happened? And it's very important to understand why this has actually happened, because we cannot go and believe what I'm saying. It's not about listening to what I'm saying and then creating a new belief. Intelligence is about understanding. Intelligence is about critical thought. The foundation of intelligence is doubt. But we cannot only doubt what we like to doubt and believe what we like to believe because it makes us feel better. This is the lie that religion has given man, that he can simply believe and be free. It requires much more effort than this. Enough effort to melt the ice, to flow back in the ocean, to realize that effort was an illusion. But one has to make the effort first in order to make this realization. So man is always in pain. And it basically happens at once. From 3 years old, a child is perfectly happy. 6 years old, he's a little bit less happy. 10 years old, he starts becoming an angry teenager. This is because the child develops a sense of self that is separate from God. The child creates the belief that he is separate from existence. Very seldom does it happen that man actually becomes reconnected with God, with himself, with life. Very seldom. Jesus Christ, Ramana Maharshi, Kabir, Eckhart Tolle. These people are so few that they cannot even be believed. From their own words, from their own books, from their own writings, from what their disciples wrote about them. Eckhart Tolle even has workshops. I went to go see Eckhart Tolle. There's a lot to be learned from masters. There have been many sages throughout history, and there are even sages today. But modern spirituality is a lie, because there are different tiers of dreaming. And man cannot stay in the dream that he is separate from God. He must dissolve into the absolute totality. He must become one again, because he was never separate. The drop must fall back into the ocean. But people go on talking about Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I praise Mohammed or other religious figures. But deep down, they actually doubt their existence because they don't know. They have heard people say that the sea is salty. They have heard Jesus Christ go down to the river and taste the water, and he's told you how it tastes. But you have to make the journey yourself. You don't get to do that going to a church. You don't get to do that going to a study group and assuming that you're intelligent without thinking on your own. In fact, the people that you're around will be your detriment. But you're scared to turn inward. You're scared to see your godliness because you've been trained by the society, by the establishment, that you're not good enough. And this is absolutely a lie. Because God is perfection. And you are perfection. You are God. But you have to live in your godliness. How can man even begin to believe that peace is possible? How can he even begin to believe the taste of nectar when he's never had an ounce? It's simply a combination of words, and when he hears it, he doubts, he disbelieves. Because life is very sick. Life is very bitter for the unconscious mind, for the unintelligent mind. The only experience that the unconscious, unintelligent man has is of poison, is of salt, is of bitterness, sourness. He does not taste the sweet, divine beauty. Poker players are far more intelligent, of a far more intelligent breed. Not because they are superior. There is no superiority or inferiority in God. There is only one. But intelligence helps make the jump because it requires knife-like honesty. It must be very surgical. We must be very logical and intelligent because it requires doubt, not only belief. It requires the capacity to doubt every presupposition which we believe in. There was a man in Hinduism named Krishna, and he used to sing songs on a flute, songs about God. Kabir also loved songs very much, and he sang unbelievably. A very beautiful voice this man had. But you might listen out of courtesy, and you might say much about how beautiful it is, or you might not say anything at all. But in fact, do you really understand the fragrance? Do you really know the love that they are talking about? Or do you simply want to believe in it? Because God is not something that you can believe in. If you believe, then you have already gone astray. God is much deeper. You have to become absolutely dumb. You have to become absolutely ignorant. You have to become like a child. You have to drop all presuppositions of knowing. Because only then will you have a mind that allows you to make free associations on the fly. But why do we want this belief that we know, that we are certain that one day we will go into this land of heaven? We are already in heaven. In fact, man is living in hell. It's not a belief. Now, you might not be able to see it, but you are in existence. You are not separate. If you say yes to existence, which is the word that is contained in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah, in the Vedas, and so on. The word yes to God is beyond the social formalities. You cannot argue with the Jesus Christ very well. You might try to, but it's going to be very difficult to argue with a man like this because his presence has such weight. His eyes have such a hypnotic fragrance of love. That's why it's called Christ consciousness, loving awareness. Even if you want to argue with such a man, it's going to be very difficult to do so because you will not see the anger, you will not see the vanity which you have, that you put on this mirror that you call Jesus Christ. You will only see your own vanity. You will only see your own pain. But the argument remains. Once Jesus Christ is gone, you have the ignorant come and make a religion off the backs of their own guilt for killing this poor beautiful man. And rather than realizing the situation, they tell you that right now you are not good enough, but one day in the future you will be good. Christianity is a religion for the mentally retarded. No Christian has ever become a Christ. No Christian has ever woken up and found consciousness. I'm sorry. It does not happen. Because you must realize that your identity with Christianity is simply borrowed. But you believe that this is you. But if you were born in Saudi Arabia and you are a Muslim, you believe that you are absolutely a Muslim. You don't believe that Jesus Christ is right. But you are simply unconscious and you have been born into a family and you believe your conditionings. But it hurts your ego. But poker players must be willing to sacrifice the conditionings of the society in order to find super consciousness. In order to find mind expansion. So basically, we go to a training site. We go in there with ideas as to what we're learning, and we come back empty-handed. In fact, we often come back more confused. It doesn't mean that we don't play poker better, by the way. This is very important. Don't confuse creating a box around how you play and therefore having a slightly higher win rate in the short term with creating the highest possible ceiling until you break the ceiling because you realize that you're the totality of existence and there are no ceilings to your intelligence. Is the same. They are not the same. They are not equivalent. And that would be a very large insult to your intelligence. And I would never make such an insult to your intelligence. But intelligence needs commitment, and it needs involvement, and it needs your totality, it needs your surrender, and it needs your love for higher thinking, for intelligence. So when you say yes, you must have no strings attached or conditions. When the yes is unconditional, and it's not out of some sort of coercion, but it actually is spontaneous within you, it is very beautiful, and it has very much power. It's fiery, and it transforms the base metal into gold from a very ordinary human being to an extraordinary divine existence, to God Himself, to the Absolute. But we have to remember, this yes, this trust that we say cannot come out of some sort of coercion or psychological or physical manipulation. But the children are simply Christians because they're coerced to be Christians from the very childhood. Someone is a Jew. I was born into a Jewish family. And when I went to temple, they told me that the Mashiach, which is basically the Messiah, is going to come and make all of the Gentiles, people who are not Jews, or slaves. I was 9 years old. I was still very intelligent then. I'm much less intelligent now, unfortunately. But I'm attempting to become intelligent again. I was completely awed by this. And I was completely shattered. I was walking to temple as my family made me go to temple on Saturday, and I saw a very nice homeless man. He was a very nice black guy, and I thought that bringing this black guy into the temple would be fantastic because it would be very annoying to the Jews, and I wanted them to see their own hypocrisy and their own racism. So I took him with me. And this man simply needed some water and some food. And they were so upset, and they said, "Get this man out of the temple." And I said, "I don't understand. This is a very beautiful human being. And he obviously needs food. And you're telling me about the Torah, but you're so blind you don't even see this human being in front of you?" I was disgusted by their lack of humanity. But they would always stick by their kind. But there is no individual kind. There is only consciousness. No one else exists. Everybody appears in your consciousness. If you're blind, you will think there are others. If you are one, you will know the truth. A very big psychological conditioning did not happen 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago. It's happening today. And children are being terribly exploited. They're being forced into these different religious organizations. And the parents are not even aware of what they're doing to their children, preventing their children from even becoming religious, because God has to be met through the inside. And these parenting are poisoning these poor children. But they should think first, but they do it out of their conditioning, they do it out of their blindness, because they want to be seen as a good religious parent, but they don't know true religion. True religion starts in meditation. True religion starts when you listen to music, not as a cheap distraction, but you listen to music because of its love. When you open a book of poetry, and you are not so interested in accomplishing things and becoming such a great utilitarian robot to be great one day in the future, but you simply smell the flowers and you smell the fragrance and you hear the birds chirping, and you chirp back with them, and you sing with them, and you dance with them. But once man is under coercion, man yields very easily because he's forced to yield. From the time that he's born, he's beaten and imprisoned and told that if he is not in alignment with all the ideas of the society, keep in mind all societal ideas are absolutely arbitrary. If you have studied history and the history of society, then you will know that every society says that they are right. They're always interested in killing the ones who are wrong. And the society today thinks that it is different. In 500 years, we will look at our current society and see how absolutely barbarous it is. How absolutely detrimental to the intelligence of man it is. But we make our children depend on us, and we hurt them emotionally, we hurt them physically, we hurt them spiritually. And that's what's been done on earth for centuries and centuries. And there's so much to talk about God, but you cannot see God anywhere. So you talk about religion, theology. But none of it is existential. It's all a fucking fairy tale. It's all bullshit. But it hurts the ego because they want to say flowery words and feel like by being viewed as a flowery person, they will be happy. This is simply their delusion. They think that other people looking at them and believing that they are good will lead to Christ consciousness. It will not. It may make your ego feel better, but I'm so sorry. Your ego is just a superimposed hallucination. It's not existent. But we've created a very large friction by trying to be these great religious people, these great spiritual people. In fact, I'm going to make the example and say training sites are the same as religion, because religion is about the subject and going inside, right? You could say that something like a training site education is about studying the object. The problem is that the training sites are teaching you to memorize patterns rather than understand why things happen. It is the same in religion. They simply teach you to memorize scriptures rather than understand yourself. There is no difference. Mind expansion can be approached from many different angles. So if you are religious, do not get completely attached to this religious talk. Because in the next talk, I will talk about how God does not exist. And if you are irreligious and you're not interested in religion, I will tell you there is a very deep intelligence in that understanding. But there's also something beyond the religious mind, and it's when these two minds become one, when trust and doubt go back to the source. But one has to risk his ego. We have to be willing to be heard. But it is the most painful thing. It is the most arduous thing. And unless we are willing to dissolve our ego, the fish will always remain thirsty. Dissolve the ego and there's no possibility of thirst. Because you cannot be thirsty in the ocean. Because you are the ocean. It is only a separate psychological entity claiming ownership over God that thinks it's separate. It is not you. Man is the only animal who is not finished with the seed that is not already fragrant, that smells like it is just ready to bloom. We are responsible for our growth. And nature has brought us to a certain point, and we've been made responsible. But nature cannot do it anymore, and the society has enslaved us. They have not helped us. So we must plant the seed of our own intelligence and be willing to go within. We have to take the jump. And we have to become, what is the word? A pilgrim? Or not a foreigner, a traveler on this journey. Because if we don't become a traveler, and if life does not have a very adventurous quality, a search and inquiry into truth, we will remain empty and thirsty and hungry and discontented. We will remain spiritually starved. But people take themselves for granted, and that is the very problem. That is exactly the crux of the issue. We take ourselves for granted. We think as if we are what we are supposed to be. The problem is that man is a walking paradox. Because man is not what he thinks he is. He is far more. And man's capacities are immense. And it's not a religious thing. It's not a spiritual thing. It's not a scientific thing. It is all of those things. It is one. Man is one. Jesus said, I am man, and I am the earth, and I and God are one. He was pointing to the truth. To know godliness is to know that life is an eternal journey, pilgrimage, engagement. And this is the meaning when we say that God is infinite. You can go on attaining, but you can never say, now this is the dead end, and this is the end. And this is what's so beautiful about poker, is that we can never find a solution for the conflict solution mind. You can only have thoughts arise in consciousness. But the mechanism which tries to find the solution because we are scared of not being right dissolves into love, because we realize that that insecurity is simply a game that we've been installed with by the society to care about things that don't matter. Of course we will win, we are intelligent. So why have we been taught to distrust our own intelligence and to look to robots to help us? This is absolutely foolish, and this is not what intelligence is about, because a robot is absolutely stupid. A robot simply is given an input and creates an output, and it's very limited. But the brain of a Homo sapien, the capacities are far beyond any supercomputer that we have the capacity to create. Man is immortal if he plants his seed. But the misery of man is that he thinks that the way that he is right now is the way that he's supposed to be. And it hurts his ego very deeply to even consider that right now things are not perfect, but at some point my experience can be better. It hurts his ego very deeply. He's unwilling. And we watch YouTubers saying things can be hopeful in the future, and people will watch. But they don't want to admit the fact that right now they need to go inside and they need to learn to give themselves love. But not conditional love. I'm going to do this and then I'll feel good. No. The presupposition that if you don't do this and you're not worthy of love is the problem. And that is the mechanism that needs to be watched. The ego. Man remains satisfied with very superficial things, imagining how other people think of him, and somehow this will lead to his contentment. Think of this stupidity. This will always leave a very deep discontentment because we don't have the capacity to be understood by others. We only have the capacity to be understood by ourselves, but it hurts because we've been trained to hate ourselves. Jesus Christ was one of the greatest revolutionaries, and there's a reason why he was killed. Kabir was also a great revolutionary, and one of the greatest that's ever walked on the earth. And his value were in his writings and his teachings that he left for us to be able to remember our essence. If you can make a connection with his vision, it will change your life. It will expand your mind beyond all of your possible expectations, because all of your possible expectations are created right now with an unexpanded mind. But does it hurt? Does that hurt? Feel those emotions, because that's not you. That's the installation of the society. We are slaves of our painful emotions. But why are we slaves of our painful emotions? We're slaves of our painful emotions because we are taught from the very beginning that things that don't matter matter. Money, prestige, power. Money has a lot of utility for comfort. That is one thing. This makes a lot of sense. But things like domination over other people, if you don't know that if you make someone your slave, then you are the slave, then you have not understood yourself. Only a fool and a very ugly human being who does not know love, who only knows vanity, could want to enslave another. Poker players are very serious when they play. They don't play like children. They know there's something missing. They know that poker is slipping out of their hands. And they know that it shouldn't be so, but they're in such denial they have to create more and more structures of knowledge about arbitrary facts that do not help them with the right problems in order to make them feel better, but they don't understand that this feeling better is a result of beliefs that they are not good enough that have been installed in their operating system by the society. So rather than trying to solve arbitrary problems, which are absolutely perpetuating the problem, adding more pain to the problem, they must stop. They must stop studying and spend time thinking for themselves, studying about hands using their own brain. No outside sources in study groups with people, no forums, no pio solvers. No pio solvers and forums and groups are fine. But one must make a commitment to himself to use his own brain, use his own intelligence. Because if you're talking to someone about poker, there's no possibility of you going beyond them. You are limited to their intelligence. Now, if they're better than you, then maybe you have something to gain. But if your goal is to expand your mind and not win friends and influence people, but you want to be a Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci was not interested in social games and getting people to like him. Leonardo da Vinci was interested in love. Leonardo da Vinci was interested in his craft. Poker players are absolutely miserable. Now, when you expand your mind, you will laugh at the whole situation. Not out of being uncompassionate, but out of how simple this idea that you can memorize ideas that are simply like pieces of wood, but you have not created a foundation, you do not have a blueprint, you have not created a structure. You simply run around like a chicken with his head cut off with the false belief, which is coming from ignorance, that simply adding knowledge without considering the right problems to solve is the way to go. You are absolutely foolish. There has never been a greater fool than the man who does not sharpen his knife before chopping his vegetables. I tried to make a quote that sounds like a some Chinese Zen parable, but I don't think it sounded like that. But if a fish comes to you and he says, "I'm very thirsty," what are you going to think? Are you going to feel sympathy for the fish? Are you going to feel some kind of empathy for the fish? You will simply laugh and you'll say, "If you're thirsty, then fucking drink." And don't ask other fish where the water is. And don't go to other groups and say, "Where's the water?" Sit with yourself and drink. But it's painful because the training has been to look for an external source. And poker players remain in anguish and pain because they simply believe that memorizing random factoids about a solver and the way the different situations play will lead them to a greater understanding of how their opponents play and how to exploit them. These things have nothing to do with each other. Absolutely nothing. But they cannot be helped. Because they go on going to the training sites, going on to their solvers. They're hiding from themselves because they're terrified to admit their ignorance. So they try to add more and more knowledge without fundamentally understanding the point. But it's pointless to tell them because no one can help them. It's better not to talk to them about their wounds that they're carrying in their soul. It's better to simply go within ourselves and be attentive to our own wounds. That's why intoxicants have been very important down the ages. Drugs, opium poppies, marijuanas, these different kind of substances. And there's never been a time where man has not been addicted. And the reason is, excuse me, the reason is because of how abusive the society is. And the reason is because the society teaches us that nothing that we do is correct. So no matter what we do, we always question ourselves, is this right? Is this right? Is this okay? Until we start to believe that what we are doing is not right, until we start to believe that we are fundamentally not good enough and that we have to do something in order to become good. You don't have the capacity to create bliss. You can only create misery. If you don't create misery, then bliss is already there. Bliss is absolutely effortless. You cannot practice it. But misery, you have to make a great effort by going into the sites, going into the trainers, and adding stacks and stacks and stacks of factoids on top of your already pure poker essence that doesn't look to the past to help you think about how to play against your opponent now. If you are still in a time-bound, past-orientated consciousness and you are not one with poker and you are still thinking while you are playing, you have not found cosmic consciousness. And the society, while they maybe have perpetuated our stupidity, and they may be responsible at some level, it is absolutely our work as poker players to repair our brains and to become more intelligent. But the problem is that it hurts to admit that, wow, maybe Pio Solver isn't right. Maybe these random facts that I'm going to collect to show to other people to make myself feel less insecure are actually not helping me play better. It hurts very deeply. But existence creates every human being with great intelligence, and you can see that in a child's eyes. They are very intelligent. It's very hard to find a stupid child. And if you can find a child that is stupid, it simply means that his parents have conditioned him very aggressively. Or maybe the child is a little bit older. But children are overflowing with intelligence. And where does that intelligence disappear to? It doesn't actually go anywhere. It's that the brain becomes compartmentalized, and in each situation we are in, there is a context based on the information that we have. And our brain creates the scenery the same way that in a dream when we are sleeping at night, our brain creates the scenery, our brain creates the people that we're talking to, it creates their emotions, it creates our emotions, it creates the anger that we think the person has for us, even though we cannot feel their anger, even though it's all created in our own dream, we believe in them. The society wants stupid people because stupid people are very easy to manage and to dominate and to manipulate. But stupid people are also very easy to beat in poker. An intelligent poker player is very difficult to play against. And he will make life a very, very difficult thing. But a poker player who simply bets 1/3 and mostly under bluffs and doesn't really find bluffs in situations that he should, doesn't think deeply about what his opponent is doing. He's very predictable. He's very easy to play against. Society is absolutely against intelligence. It doesn't want people to be intelligent. Stupid people are completely obedient. Even when obedience is a sin, they are still obedient. Because stupid people can force themselves to become machines. And society needs robots, not human beings, not poker players, not people of intelligence. Society does not give a fuck about us. It's only interested in our efficiency, not our well-being. And machines certainly are more efficient than men. The machine is the model, and man has to follow the model. Man has to become more and more stupid by memorizing more and more shit that's not true, that doesn't matter. Man has to remember how bad he is, but if he acts good and he works hard and he gets a house and he doesn't disobey, then one day in the future there's heaven waiting for him. Absolutely wrong. If man is intelligent, he's not going to be a clerk. He's not going to waste his life writing stupid documents, collecting bullshit files. He's going to be more respectful toward his own being. He's going to choose some other way to live. He's going to use his creativity. He will not just be a duty collector. He will not just be a cashier. How can you ask an intelligent man to become a police officer? It's impossible. I mean, how can you ask an intelligent man to go and wear a uniform, go into another country, and kill other human beings? People that have fathers, mothers, children. How can you ask an intelligent person to do that? Intelligent people are not cattle, but unintelligent people will get angry when they hear that because they think that killing innocent people, they think that these boys, these 19-year-old boys are bad on the other side because their culture has told them to fight against us, and we think that one of us is good and one of us is bad. That is absolute mental retardation. But the mentally retarded like to tell you not to call them what they are, not to say these words, because they don't want to see themselves, because it hurts. It hurts absolutely. Intelligent people are not buffaloes. Intelligent people cannot be told to do stupid things. They will say no. And let's give an example. Think about the man who dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima. If he was slightly intelligent, in a heartbeat he would have said, hell no. Even if they had a gun to his head and they had a gun to his family's head, he would say, absolutely no, I'm not going to participate in killing 100,000 people, innocent people. He would have said, if you're going to kill me and my family, then kill us. But we are not going to kill 100,000 beautiful human beings. We are not going to commit a sin out of your stupidity. We're not going to kill innocent small children, old people that have no responsibility for the war. Only something for the mentally retarded politicians who are interested in dominating and harming people for their own prestige, for their own power. These innocent people did not cause it, so why should we drop an atom bomb on them? It's better to die than to kill 100,000 people for such stupidity. So if that man had any sort of intelligence, he would have absolutely said no, unequivocally. But if the American ego is so hurt by their stupidity and is so arrogant that they create fairy tales about how everybody else is wrong and how we're going to kill everybody. Adolf Hitler, one of the stupidest human beings that has ever lived, believed that harming other human beings was the solution, because we're taught that war is made for peace. If you want peace, then you don't kill and you go and kiss people. You don't vote for politicians to go kill people because you're told on the news that other people are dangerous because of their color of their skin or because of their location. You learn to go and kiss them and realize that everybody has a heart and there are no bad people. Jesus said, love your enemies. But man is terrified of himself. The guy that dropped an atom bomb must have... to me, he is much stupider than a tree, than a rock, than the air. It requires a very large amount of stupidity to do such a thing. And you know what? That man had a very good night's sleep after he dropped the atom bomb. His sleep was not disturbed. And in the morning, an interviewer asked him, how did you sleep last night? And he replied, I slept very well. I did my duty. I finished my job. I had a great night's sleep. Whatever my duty is, I do my duty to the best of my ability and I don't ask questions. 100,000 motherfucking human beings, we're talking about children, are dead in 5 seconds, burned up. And this guy doesn't even have a nightmare. The society must have completely destroyed this man's intelligence totally. He must have been absolutely a robot. Zero conscience. I mean, it makes me want to cry right now. I mean, fuck. Such... I don't even know how that's possible. But people believe this shit. They actually believe that this shit is okay. But the society needs machines. They don't need our hearts. They don't need our love. They don't need our intelligence. They don't need us to think. If you have a bachelor's degree, it means that you have a certificate that basically shows that you've lost the majority of your intelligence. And if you have a master's degree, you've definitely lost a lot more. And if you have a PhD, you're absolutely finished. There's no hope for you. There was a story that I read a while ago about Henry Thoreau, who is a very intelligent man. I would say he's a philosopher. And he came back from university, and an old man in his village came to see him, and the old man was very surprised. Seeing the old man was very puzzled and surprised, Thoreau asked him, "Why do you look so puzzled? Why are you surprised?" And the old man said, "I'm surprised because you've done a very, very good job. You've saved your intelligence. Even though you went to university, you still look very intelligent, and that's a very rare phenomenon. To escape a university and still remain intelligent is a very rare thing because the whole machinery of education, the entire system, is to make you mechanical. A very new education in poker is needed, which is to make you more conscious, not more knowledgeable, which will make you more loving, not more logical. Logic is good, but only if love is the master. Then logic is a good servant, but logic cannot be the master, and love should not be the servant. Knowledge is good, but only if consciousness remains in control. But if knowledge remains in control, if the head is in control, the heart will be destroyed. Our intuition will be destroyed. Our deeper intelligence will be destroyed. But this society does not need the intelligent. Hence, it's created these conditionings: social, religious, political, educational, etc. Great psychological strategies have been invented down the ages just to reduce people into machines. Something pseudo. Making people a fucking commodity. You have to be very aware of history. You have to be very aware of the society that we live in. There's a strategy in North Korea by Kim Jong-un. He has enough money to make all of his people very, very nourished. But he keeps them starving because he doesn't want them to think about the misery that they are in. This is a very good strategy. As the society gets richer and becomes more intelligent, they become much more interested in their own subjectivity, in the operating system which they are using to perceive reality. They don't simply take it for granted. But poor societies cannot be so intelligent. It is absolutely impossible because the person is forced against his will to be a robot and simply look for scraps, look for food, do anything to survive. Now, certainly a poor man can be an exception, but as far as the society is concerned, it's very difficult. Because the poor society remains being interested in having more and more and more. The intelligent poker player who has already had his riches, who has already had money, has already seen that these things outside do not fulfill his soul, do not make his intelligence flower. will not simply look to collect knowledge. The whole education system, the entire effort of all the institutions that are responsible for education is simply to stuff people with knowledge, because knowledge will help them do more and more things efficiently. If they can do things more and more efficiently, they will have more things. This is not education. This is not real education. I mean, Jesus, it makes me want to cry. It's so sad. Because we destroy the beauty of poker. Real education is to teach a poker player the most fundamental truth, that we are alone. We come into this existence alone and we will go alone. And between coming and going, I can deceive myself that I'm not alone. But it's only a very small deception, and the deception is always realized when the drop falls back into the ocean, as it always must. Intrinsically, we are alone islands unto ourselves, so this teaching that we have been given to go and seek the other, to validate our current knowledge rather than expand what we already have, is absolutely the wrong focus, is absolutely the wrong tool. Because aloneness is our nature, and we must fall in tune with that, and give it up to the divine, give it up to God, and know exactly what it is in meditation, in samadhi, in love. Samadhi is when the drop falls back into the ocean and you remember your true essence. It's not far, in fact, it's right in front of you, but the belief is that we have to go somewhere else. And we forget that these are just thoughts. This is not reality. But man has been taught, even through language. Language is simply past, future oriented, ownership oriented. It's not reality. It's simply a collection of symbols to force us into this unintelligent state of consciousness. So it has been a while. I've been speaking for a while. I love you all so much. And I will speak with you all very soon. Thank you for listening.